boys and girls. I know by the time you see this that Christmas will be over with, but we do record these ahead of time so that you have them on time. So we're going to start a new unit and Unit 4. But with this lesson and this week, we're going to be really focusing on financial literacy. So our first lesson has to deal with 4.10, and we just need to know the difference between, we need to know what a fixed expense is and a variable expense. And so this is what this lesson is going to cover, is fixed and variable expenses. Okay. So you say, what is a fixed expense? What is a variable expense? Well, here's our definition in here. Money that you need to pay for electricity and phone services are expenses. Things that you have to pay out are expenses. Expenses that occur regularly and the amount does not change are fixed expenses. Okay, so if the amount doesn't change and you have to pay them out regularly, then they are fixed expenses. And how I tell students, and how I'm going to tell you guys to remember fixed expense. When I fix my hair, I don't want it to change. I want it to stay the way it is. So fixed means to stay. This smart board is fixed to the wall. Okay? It's going to stay there. So fixed means it does not change. It's not going to move. Okay? So that can help us remember that word fixed. The other expense that we're going to talk about today is amount that changes based on need or choice are variable expenses. These are expenses that the amount does change every time you want to go pay. Maybe I go to Walmart and look for some nice t-shirts, and then I go to Target. Well, at Walmart they might be one price and at Target another price. So that's where the price varies. So we call variable expense. Okay? So that's what we're going to be working on. The difference between a fixed expense, just remember fixed doesn't change, and variable expense changes. Let's unlock this problem. Erin has some fixed and variable expenses. She pays $23.75 every 12 weeks for the newspaper to be delivered to her home every day. She and her family like to eat out. Monday night, she spends $45.78 to eat a meal at restaurant A. Tuesday night, she spent $58.12 for a meal at restaurant B. And Wednesday night, she spent $37.64 at a meal at restaurant C. Okay, so now we're going to break this down, and I say, what's the question asking us? Okay. So we're going to look down here, and this is going to help us figure out what it wants from us. And so we're going to try to figure out which ones of these expenses are fixed, which ones are variable, and how much she's paying within them. Erin's blank is a blank expense because she pays the same amount and the cost does not change. So Erin's, what does she do that costs the same? She pays $23.75 every 12 weeks for the newspaper to be delivered to her home every day. Does that amount change? So I'm thinking right here, let me move over here, that I'm going to write Erin's newspaper is a fixed expense because she pays the same amount and it does not change. The money she spends on meals is think about when you go to a restaurant. If you want to go to McDonald's or Wendy's or Chick-fil-A, notice that whatever you pay for a Happy Meal at one place isn't necessarily what you're going to pay at another place. Plus, you might not get the same items. So it varies in price. So we're going to say the meals that she spends is a variable expense because the amount changes depending on what restaurant she goes to and the type of meal that she buys. Okay? So hopefully you can see that well. Now that we understand the newspaper is fixed, it's something that she pays the same price for no matter how often. But meals change depending on where she goes. Now when I pull this up, it's going to move that. So, but I've got to pull it up, so I'm going to erase this. But you can always pause the video at any time to get this on your paper or to fill it in. But what I tell my students to do is listen to all of this and then go see if you can figure it out on the next page, on the guided practice page, and put those answers in. Example 2, find the amount that Erin spends on the fixed expense for 24 weeks. So we got to come back up to the problem, and we want to know how much does she spend on the fixed expense. The fixed expense was her newspaper. Well, she pays $23.75 every 12 weeks. So let's write that down. It was $23.75. So she pays $23.75 every 12 weeks for the newspaper. So in 24 weeks she pays, well, 24 weeks, think of our 12s. 12 times 1 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24. That's one of our facts that we know. So she's going to pay double. So then she's going to pay $23.75 for the first 12 weeks and $23.75 for the next 12 weeks. Now remember, when we're adding money, we line them up by our decimal point and place value. And we bring the decimal down and we add. 5 plus 5 is 10. 7 plus 7 is 14. Plus 1 is 15. 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7, 2 plus 2 is 4. So we get $47.50. So Erin spends $47.50 on fixed expenses for the week for 24 weeks. So, and these are in fixed. Fixed meaning that amount doesn't change. The next 12 weeks, she's going to be spending the same amount of money. Okay, now go to your next page. How much does she spend on variable expenses? So now what I'm going to have to do, excuse me, is we're going to have to go through and see where she had her meals at and how much she paid for her meals. So let me come up to the top to our problem again. She and her family like to eat out. On Monday night, she spends $45.78. So I'm going to write that out to the side. On Monday, she does $45.78. Because that's going to help me when I'm scrolling down here. Tuesday, $58.12. For restaurant B, and Wednesday, which is her restaurant C, she spends $37.64 for a meal at restaurant C. So now I can come in, because I know that these are the expenses that she spends. On Monday night, we said she did $45.78. On Tuesday was $58.12, and on Wednesday, $37.64. So now what is it telling us to do is to total up, or to add, all the expenses that were variable that she spent. So I tell my students 2 numbers at a time when we add. We're less likely to make a mistake, and we want to make sure that we're getting our answers correctly. So 8 plus 2 is 10. 7 plus 2 is 9. 8 plus 5 is 13. And 5 plus 5 would be 10. So now that's just adding those first 2 amounts. We still, adding these 2, we still have to add the $37.64. That's 4, 15, because 9 and 6 is 15. 7 plus 3 is 10, plus the 1 is 11. 3 plus 1 is 4, and 1. So then when I added this, I got a total of $141.54 is what she spent in variable expenses. So remember, variable means the prices were all different. They changed. Did you notice that when we put it up there? And you can pause that video and go back to that if you need to. Okay. Let's go ahead and move up and let's see what these show and share. Okay, so now let's see if we really understand variable and fixed expense. Betsy pays a trash service to pick up the household trash once a week. The cost is $23 a month. Trash pickup is a what kind of expense? Well, let's think about it. $23 a month, $23 the next month, $23 the next month after that. Does that amount change? No. So it has to be a fixed. It's going to stay the same. It's fixed to that wall. It's fixed to that price. That price is fixed. So it has to be a fixed expense. And since we want to know how much it's going to be in 6 months, we're going to take 6 times 23. And I know my students like to go out to the side. It's easier for them when we're multiplying. 6 times 3 is, you got it, 18. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 1 is 3, and that's 13. So then it's $138. Okay, for 6 months of trash service. I should make that look a little bit cleaner for you, sorry. So, $138. And I like to remind my students, where's my decimal if you can't see it? If it's out of sight, it's on the right. Thinking about money, it would be right here at the end, and this would be your change, and we don't have any change. So, okay, look at number 2. Mrs. Bowers goes grocery shopping once a week. In 1 month, she spends $99.65, $122.56, $130.45, and $145. What is the total monthly expense? Wow, we have to figure all that out. Well, grocery bills are what kind of a, look at my prices. If I go to one store one time, does it mean I'm going to pay the exact same price every time I go? So if the price is changing, what is that called? You got it. It's a variable expense. It's a variable expense. Miss Byers spent, grocery bills are a variable expense. In a month of, Miss Byers spent blank for groceries. Well, we're going to have to work this out. So I'm going to erase this up here. And let's see. Well, we know that she spent $99.65. Remember, one number at a time. And $122. Line them decimals up. And 56 cents. 6 and 5 is 11. 6 and 5 is 11. Plus 1 is 12. Bring down that decimal. 9 plus 1 is 10. Plus 2 is 12. 9 plus 1 is 10, plus 2 is 12, and I get $222.21. But now I'm going to have to add the $130.45 that she went to the store. 5 and 1 is 6, 4 and 2 is 6, 2 and 0 is 2, 3 and 2 is 5, and 2 and 1 is a 3. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it up here, $352.66 so far. Now I'm going to add, wow, where is my decimal on $145? If you answered on the right, you got it right. If it's out of sight, it's on the right. So when I add this, I better line my decimals up right here, friends, or my answer is going to be wrong, okay? 6 and 6 plus 0 is 6. 6 plus 0 is 6. 5 plus 2 is 7. 5 plus 4 is 9, and 3 plus 1 is 4. So we get $497.66 is how much she spent for groceries, and that's a variable expense because it varies. Okay. Now, if you need to pause this video to get any of this copied down, you go ahead. I am going to erase it. so that we can do this last problem, because I think I'm gonna have to pull it up. Okay. Use the list to the right to sort into fixed expense and variable expense. Choose one and explain why you placed it there. So let's do that first. We're gonna choose one of these over here. Let's start with the first one, and let's just do this one for this one. Clothing. So over here's a list of items, and we're gonna have to write where we're gonna put this. Clothing. Now we're gonna have to do some thinking. Does my clothes cost the same every single time I go buy it? Now think about different places that you go buy. You can go into the mall and you can go buy into different shops. Are jeans always going to be the same price in every shop? Are shirts? Hopefully you said no. So that would be a variable expense. So I'm going to put clothing right here, and I'm going to have to erase it here in a minute because I'm going to pull this chart up, but I wanted to finish this out. Clothing is a variable expense because the price changes not only does it change at different stores, but sometimes a store can run a sale one day and it'll be a different price one day and then back to an original price the next day. So, and then, so prices on clothing changed, and that would be a variable expense. Choose one and explain why you place it. Because the price changes according to what store. And it could go on sale. So that's what I would write for one of the items that we chose. And I just chose the first one. But you're welcome to go through those and tell me why you think items change or not change or are fixed. Okay, I'm going to erase this and pull this up. But now that we know that clothing is a variable expense, I kind of wanted to, there we go. I want to be able to see, I'm going to just hide clothing, but we know that clothing comes right here. So I'm going to put clothing right here. Now let's look at this next one, a car payment. That's kind of out there for us because we're really right now not thinking of car payments. But what I can tell you, and what I tell my students, is that if it's a big, huge amount of money that you're going to have to pay, cars cost a lot of money, somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 to $60,000. I mean, it just depends on the kind of car that you want, but it's several $1,000s. Okay, even used cars you could pay several thousands. So when you're paying thousands of dollars for things, you are going to have to pay that off. And I would call those are fixed. You're going to pay the same amount every single month until you get them paid off. I don't want one month to have a $300 bill and the next month to have a $150 bill, because then I couldn't plan my money. So if it's a big, huge expense, like a car, most likely it's going to be a fixed expense. So a car, for sure, you're going to pay so much every month, and that amount's not going to change until your car is paid off. So I put car payment right here. And this is a good time to stop and have really good conversations with your parents if you are at home, with older siblings if they drive vehicles, or if you know somebody, to definitely talk to them about understanding fixed. You don't have to ask them what they actually pay for their car, but you can ask them, like, how do fixed expense works? How do they help you? Okay, so that's good. And in the classroom, we're going to pause this video and we're going to talk about fixed expenses. Vacations. Okay, think about vacations. Now here, that is a huge expense, but here's where this one gets a little bit tricky. Is it going to cost the same if I drive to Oklahoma City as if I go to Seattle, or if I go to just out of this country, maybe to Europe, maybe to Spain somewhere, or somewhere fun that you like to go. Do all of those places cost the exact same? No, it varies. So, like, say for trips that are further away that you're doing a lot on, you're going to have to save a lot more money than maybe just a trip or a little mini vacation just to Lubbock. Maybe you just want to stay the night in Lubbock and go shopping around Lubbock for a night. It's only 2 hours away. Is that going to cost us the same as if we wanted to go travel to, Carlsbad Caverns, which isn't far from here, but it's quite a few, it's a little bit of a ways, but the costs are going to be different. So that one was a confusing one because vacations are a big cost, but varies. It varies depending on where you go. Groceries, I hope from the one up above there you figured out that groceries is a variable expense because things can go on sale and prices are different depending on what store you are at. Entertainment, that's just like going out to the movies, things like that. Going out to eat for us is a lot of fun entertainment. Going to a play, spending money on things that you like games, like Xbox games and iStation games. Those are all entertainment things that we enjoy, we want to spend our money, enjoy doing. So when I just said those things, does it cost the same to buy and purchase a game as it does to go out to the movies? Does it cost the same to rent a movie or maybe go to Redbox and rent a movie as it does to go out to a movie? Hopefully you notice that the price changes. So entertainment is a variable expense. Let me write that down here. Okay. And I think at the beginning, this one talked to us about what it wanted us to say. Okay, no. Let's come back down here. Okay, so electric bills. Now, electric bills, I sometimes have a hard time with that one because it depends. You can be in a place that makes you pay a certain amount for your electricity, but most of the time you are charged by what you use. Think about when your parents say, oh, it's we don't want to run the heat so much, or we don't want to run the air conditioning so much because it costs a lot of money. So the more you use it, the more you're going to pay. So I would say electric bills are variable. And I'm going to just put a comma there and I'm going to put electric. Cell phone bills. Think about those. If you text a lot, if you use minutes, where you use minutes, they always offer on TV, unlimited text and messaging for this phone. Maybe if you buy this plan, you get something different. So that should tell you that the price varies on the plan that you have and how you're using your phone. So cell phones are a variable expense. House payments. Here's another one of those several thousands and thousands of dollars that you're going to spend on a house. A lot of times it takes anywhere from 15 to 30 years to pay off a home. So you definitely want to have the payments the same all through that time so you know how to budget your money. So a house payment is going to be a fixed expense. Oops. I wrote fixed expense and I need to write, that's what that is, house payment. Okay, gas. Ooh, I like to talk about this one because all the time we're looking for where is the gas the cheapest, where can I get the most off. If I go to this place it's cheaper over here, in this city it might be cheaper when you're driving out of town and going visiting somewhere. So we're always looking for the cheapest gas prices, which should tell us that gas prices changing varies on where you go. And I know you've probably heard your parents talk about how much gas is per a gallon. So they might say, oh, it might be cheaper over here, or you might get 10 cents less of a gallon over here. So hopefully hearing all those different variations that you're realizing that gas is a variable expense. So I'm going to put gasoline right here. A loan payment. Now this one's a little bit out there, just like the house payment and the car payment, because we don't really, as you know, your age, we don't really are taking out any loans. But loans are saying, sometimes I don't have the money to buy a house, obviously, just right off the way. We have to work for it. And we don't have the money to buy a car, okay? Well, you can go to a bank and get what we call a loan. And a loan is basically where the bank gives you money and you pay them back, but with interest. Interest is money that they add on to it, and it's not usually, it depends on your rate, and it's usually not that much, but it's and you can pay the bank back this loan over time. So the bank will pay for your car, but then you're paying the bank for that car, because really the bank owns your car until you pay off that loan. So loan amounts are huge. It's not like borrowing money from your friend. It's not like that at all. Because like you might borrow like a couple dollars from your friend. No, most of the loans you're borrowing maybe several $1,000s, and you're needing somebody to help you that trusts you that you can pay them back for it. So loan payments, when you pay, if I go borrow a big amount of money from a bank, they're going to set up what we call a payment plan, and then I can pay them back how much ever I can afford that month, every month, until I get that loan paid off. Okay, so it's just going to be fixed. Loan payments, large amount of money, it's a loan payment. Okay, so go back and think about these. Talk about these with your parents, with your family. Fixed and variable expense, that's the main thing that I really want you to understand. When it's fixed, it does not change, and a variable expense does change. So hopefully this helped you out, and to working the next few, just kind of remember you can always come back and watch this lesson.